Hello there, everyone. Welcome to today's video. Today, I will be going over my first outlook concerning the fall and winter season for 2022 into 2023. Now, this winter is going to have some rare things happen. It's going to have some active things happen. It's going to have some crazy things happen. And it's going to have some of the boring aspects to it. So, let's get to it. So, first off, I want to show you the what's known as the Nino 3.4 blooms. So as you can see here, we have all of these models, and this is what they predict in regards to whether we'll see a La Nina phase, a Enso neutral phase, or a possibly El Nino phase. So as you can see here, we're currently in the month of August. Right now, we're pretty much skimming between La Nina and Enso neutral. However, though, you'll notice as we get to around late September and especially into October, we start seeing this dive back into the La Nina phase. Now, obviously, some models take it way deeper, although I think that's a possible outlier, while others still have it being and like just skimming it a bit. But basically, the general consensus is that we'll see the La Nina phase peak sometime during early November, and then we see increase back into the Enso neutral phase by late January and headed to February, so that by March we're pretty much deep into Enso neutral territory. And even the models that take it with a very strong La Nina have a strong Enso neutral phase by the time spring starts creeping closer. So you guys pretty much know, for the most part, most people already know what a La Nina phase looks like, but most don't know what Enso neutral phase looks like. So again, with your La Nina phases, you have this blocking area of high pressure that allows storms, low pressure systems, to ride along this polar jet stream that shifts back and forth from here and then resulting in some storms generally taking this track. You see the Pacific Northwest see weather conditions as a result. And then you see the north central states and into the Great Lakes at times seeing very cold weather. And then you have another area of weather where you either see a bunch of snowstorms that can shift through here, or you just see storms that come up through here, and then you just see lots of rain in this area. Then typically we see drier and warmer conditions from the southeastern United States and into Southern California. So pretty much early on the season, we could see something like this. However, switching up, speaking of La Nina, this will be the third year in a row we've had a La Nina that has only happened 3 times since 1950, where we had a triple La Nina winter streak. Now, with a Enso neutral winter pattern, you notice that the polar jet stream, for the most part, is a bit more to the east. But then you see this area of a Pacific jet stream and a subtropical jet stream. So what that means is that you're going to have lots of snowstorms up here, and then you're going to have lots of storms up here that produce rain and thunderstorms and possibly even severe weather outbreaks. And then if they do move further north ahead and the polar jet stream just happens to be in the right place, we could even see those snowstorms happening in the south and into the Carolinas and mid-Atlantic. This is also pretty favorable for some what's known as nor'easters. As a matter of fact, just a mere possible testament to what we'll be seeing later this year is that we already have a summertime nor'easter that's actually making impact in the northeastern United States later tonight. Now, it's a pretty rare occurrence, so speaking of rare occurrence, this will only be the fourth time since 1950 that we've seen a transition from a La Nina phase into an ENSO neutral winter pattern. So this year's already being going to be full of some rare events. So now I'm gonna take you month by month, pretty much what to expect. So as you can see, here we have the month of September. Now currently, we're going to have to see how exact storm tracks and all evolve, but for now I have this region being in the slightly above average range, and then these areas being in the well above average range. Now, however, though, you'll notice that a lot of the northern tier of these states are in a average zone. Now, obviously, you'll have your warm periods and the cold periods. However, I think I might actually add my second outlook, which will be coming out, I believe, in the first weekend of September, so like the 3rd or 4th, somewhere around there. Anyways, I think I might actually add a zone of slightly below average temperatures here, and then again up into here. I will explain why. Now, the CFS and even the GFS now signaling hints at this, but CFS has consistently been bringing in these large storms, some of which could be strong, that could bring in just these massive shots of fall-like air. You're gonna be one day in the mid to upper 70s, and then next day you're going to be in the 50s as your high. So that's how much of a change that we're gonna see. We will see your first frost develop, as a matter of fact, in these states as a result. Now, I don't think they'll be too impactful at this time, but something to watch out for. Also, if you're in Ontario and Quebec, especially into these areas, you might see your first flakes. And then same with these mountains, especially into northern Idaho and into northwestern Montana, you might see your first flakes during this month. So again, you have to watch out for that. But otherwise, this is what I have for now. In regards to precipitation, again relating to these shots of cold air coming from the cold front being associated with cold frontal passages, we have this area of slightly above average amounts of precipitation falling, and then again down to here. But this is due to a constant flow of Gulf moisture into the area. As a matter of fact, I might cut back this area of slightly drier than normal conditions, as now conditions appear to be quite conducive for quite a bit of rain. So we're going to see about that. But otherwise, I think this area should see average amounts of precipitation with rain time. I mean, happening here and there. Again, the occasional flakes are too happening up here. Maybe even if Minnesota even have them at all, it would be like right at that point. So now we move on to the month of October. So as you can see here, we have quite a lot of the United States in this area of well above average temperatures and slightly above average temperatures, and then your typical fall like temperatures up there. Now, the reason being is that you're not going to see too active of a storm track occurring, at least for the central parts of these states. However, though, you'll see more active tracks here and in the northeastern United States. And I will move on to that. Now, another thing is that up here, yeah, sure, your highs will still be mainly the 40s and 50s, but for that time period, that's pretty much above average. Now, in terms of precipitation, again, being associated with the ridging that's occurring up here, we have much of the U.S. being in the slightly below average precipitation amounts. So, and then we have slightly above average amounts here and here, again, being associated with storms coming through here, lifting up, and then coming back down, which will still bring in cold waves through here. So, speaking of which, I might actually cut back this zone a bit as a result. So now, let's move on to the month of November. Now, November is where we will see things take a more active turn, if I should say so. So, as you can see, again, much of the eastern two-thirds of the United States will see at least slightly above average temperatures overall. Now, I might have to, again, cut this zone back a bit, but we'll have to see precipitation trends. But you notice now there's a new addition. There is an area of slightly below average temperatures, and the reason being will be that. Oh, and before I move on to that, again, much of you in the Northeast, Midwest, and North Central states, you're still going to see lows in the 20s. So at times, so it is possible that any storm that moves through here could produce some lighter nighttime snowfall, mainly from Montana to northern Minnesota, maybe northern Wisconsin at the southernmost, and then again in the upstate regions of New York and into Vermont and Maine, which is pretty much typical. So now, as you can see here, we're going to see storms take a more active track. So you have these storms moving on from down here, and then you have it ridge up through here, and then boom. Now, as a result, you're going to see lots of mountain snowfall. So if you're in the mountains, you're going to see some pretty favorable ski weather, unless, of course, it happens at a much higher rate. Then that might not be so helpful. And then otherwise, for you guys in the valleys or low-lying areas, you're just going to see lots of rain. It's maybe a few flakes here and there during the nighttime hours. And then again, especially into this region here, I would anticipate that you see some flakes during the coldest nights. So, otherwise, for you guys up here, you're going to see some slightly above average precipitation amounts. Another thing is that you're going to see some of these powerful storms move through and generate gusty winds. And it is possible that if we do have a storm, especially pretty late into the month, that we see some sort of winter storm impact mainly this general area. But again, that's not known. I'm not saying, oh yeah, November 25th, there's going to be a major winter storm. There's going to be 21 inches of snow in Duluth. No, I'm not saying that. If something like that were to happen, then it would probably be more like 5 to 8 inches, but that's still, decent amount. So overall for fall, I anticipate lots of precipitation going on over here, including some mountain snowfall and overall slightly below average temperature, especially as we move on to October and November. Now here, you're going to see warm conditions initially before we see a general cooling trend. And then again, some flakes are possible during the coldest nights during late November mainly. Over here, you're going to see what are the normal conditions, and you'll see it cool down a bit over here, but otherwise it will stay pretty much above average in terms of both precipitation and temperature. Now over here, you're going to see it remain pretty warm for most of the time, and you're going to see lower than average amounts of precipitation. Here, you're going to need to worry about hurricanes. Speaking of which, spoiler alert, it's looking like late August could be a hurricane that rides up and impacts generally this area. Now, it's not for sure certain. I'm going to make a separate video regarding that, but it will be something you need to watch out for. And you will have similar systems crossing through here and then more coming into here, especially in the September-October timeframe. So, yeah. And then over here, you're going to see warm and dry conditions. It's going to be consistent all fall. And then here, you're going to see warm and cool transitions, especially with cold frontal and warm frontal passages. And you could see drier or wetter conditions. Now, let's move on to winter. December. You already noticed that, yeah, sure, most of the US is still going to see slightly to well above average temperatures. However, from west central upper Michigan to northwestern Wisconsin and stretching into Washington and Oregon, you're going to see at least slightly below average temperatures. Now, this is going to coincide with the strengthening La Nina. So, what that means is that you're going to see the gesturing mainly take this track. And as I'm about to show you the precipitation outlook, you're going to see a lot of storms come through here. So, if you're not a fan of winter, you're going to really hate this winter. At least if you're up here. Now, again, if you're down here, then it's going to be boring. Down here, boring. Up here, you may see a bit more activity. Now, precipitation wise, you'll see slightly below average amounts of precipitation here, and then especially from Texas and into Virginia, well below amounts of precipitation are anticipated, and then slightly below average conditions existing in this area. Now, you will notice two main areas above average amounts of precipitation. So again, there's a Pacific Northwest where you're just going to have wave after wave of low pressure systems making landfall, and then generally doing weakening trend as they move down here. And then as they move back to the northeast range, strengthening as a result. Especially, so in terms of the worst snowstorms, I would anticipate that here, especially, you could see some pretty heavy snowfall, especially in the mountains, but some lower areas could really see them. And then over here, you see, and then again, it's not going to be this big. It could be down through here, or the storm takes a more northerly turn. Here, you'll see, yeah, you could still see pretty decent snowfall, but then as it lifts back to the northeast, you could see some very heavy snowfall occur there. Now here, depending on, again, how low pressure systems track, you could either see big winter storms, or more likely, you're going to see a mix of wintry mix and especially lots and lots of rain. And then over here, you could see some storms that develop down here and then possibly bring snow into these areas. So if you're up here, prepare to shiver, and then, oh, come on, I have to go outside and shovel my driveway or snow blow it. Come on, really? So, December, it's going to be a stormy month, to say the least. But you thought that was bad? Wait till January. January? Oh boy. Now, this is where you see pretty much the peak of La Nina pass. You start seeing a trend towards enso neutral, and as you saw in the graph earlier, so La Nina tends to be more to the south, but this one's more to the east, and look at what's happening in January, more to the east. So, and this is perfectly lined up with model solutions, historical records, past trends, I mean, historical records, and then current occurrences. So this is why I anticipate. So again, you'll see most of the U.S. having some slightly to well above average temperatures. Now, over here, though, from Wyoming and down into Pennsylvania, I might actually cut back this zone a bit because this will be more transient. But anyways, up here we have slightly below average temperatures existing in the zone, but then you'll notice this decently large area of well below average temperatures. Now here is where you're going to see some Arctic outbreaks begin to form, but the worst will hold off until February, but you can still expect some pretty cold times. And based on the waves, and we know with winter storms, so obviously, again, so with winter storms, you have the main low pressure system. Say hello to, say for example, I'll call it the Colorado low. So you have the cold front coming through here, the warm front coming up through here. So in this region, you have what's known as a warm sector. So you get rain and severe thunderstorms that happens through in these areas. But then here, you have the main heavy snowfall band that occurs to the north of the warm front and to the northwest of the low pressure system. And then you have what's known as a deformation band, where you can see isolated bands of light to moderate snowfall occur. So then, if you have rain initially and you just so happen to be hit by this, then you could see a couple inches of slushy wet snow. And then, but the main thing I want to talk about regarding this is that, especially at this time of year, when you have winter storms, they're going to bring with them massive shots of cold air. So that's how you're going to see these times of sub-zero temperatures will be because of these storms. Wow, thanks so much. So if you want to shovel, then might as well do it as soon as possible, because once the cold fronts hit, the temperature cools down fast. Yeah, I know this from personal experience. Now, another common feature is that while you have the polar jet stream being in this position, you're going to see a lot of what's known as Alberta clippers come down through here and produce your average anywhere between less than an inch of snowfall to a few inches of snowfall, but those won't be too major overall. However, there have been a couple times where there'll be a rogue clipper that will produce like 10 inches of snow in places. Trust me, had that happen before. But another thing about clippers though is that they bring even stronger waves of cold air. So you see lighter snowfall, then boom. Next thing you know, it's way too cold. In terms of precipitation, as I discussed earlier, you're going to see a lot of the storms entering the Pacific Northwest region. But then another difference is that as you have the polar jet stream being like this sometimes before we see it mainly branch off like that, is that you're going to see storms also form from down here or from Colorado, move up, produce lots of either snow here or rain, depending on the low pressure track. And then you see, especially from northeast Minnesota and then into South Dakota, into Wisconsin, generally in this area, for the most part. It will shift though with different storms, where you could especially see some very heavy snowfall. And same story applies to here. Now, also during February, we could see some nor'easters occur, as it's pretty much the right time of year. So, January, you could start seeing them, but it will especially be during February where you start seeing a bunch of them. And then we have your typical below average amounts of precipitation down the southern U.S., which is typical of a weakening La Nina and sort of transitioning over to enso neutral. February. Now, this is where you're going to see pretty much the worst of these Arctic shots and also possibly the winter storms too. So, again, you will see slightly to well above average temperatures in these areas. Another thing you'll notice that now you really see, especially into West Virginia northwards, that you will see at least slightly below average temperatures as the polar jet stream dips further to the south before March comes in. It starts lifting back to the north and probably quite fast this year. Now, again, from northeastern Montana and especially into North Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, you're going to see these massive shots of Arctic air again after each of these passing storms. In terms of precipitation, again, those are your typical Pacific Northwest storms, but this time though, you're just going to see a lot of these storms produce heavy snowfall in the Great Lakes region. And this is where, again, January and February, I want to mention is that with these shots of cold air over the warmer lakes, you're going to see just tons and tons of lake effect snow, especially in these regions. And then again, it's here and here. So if you don't like lake effect, then this year, it's going to really have a laugh out of you. So gotta prepare for that. And then again, February is where I anticipate the most and the most common occurrences of nor'easters and the most intense to occur, with heavy snowfall, coastal flooding, and high wind gusts being a concern. But then March, if you hate winter, then there's a big glimmer of hope. As in March, we see the um, polar jet stream significantly move further up to the north. Now, still slightly to well below average temperatures occurring in these regions. So, in these regions, winter will be hanging on. So, you want spring up here. It's going to be slow to arrive, but down here, though, it's going to arrive quite fast, actually. Although you still might see a snowfall event or two, possibly up into here. So, just because spring arrives doesn't mean it can't snow. It then yeah, so you're going to see spring like temperatures coming pretty fast if you're especially in these areas here. And in terms of precipitation, you notice that the where's it that activity really winds down. Like sure you'll still have snowstorms occur through here, but then you notice that again with the ridging occurring, that you have these slightly drier than average conditions now extended to southern South Dakota and then again down to here, and then could still see we could see a lot of rain and possibly wintry mixes at times occur down here, and then again up to here, and then here. So over oh, and then my thoughts overall for this winter here. So here you can see a lot of mountain snowfall, especially up to here. You could see a whole lot of storms bringing rain, snow, rain, snow, rain, snow. It's going to be active. Down here, you're going to see your typical boring, warm, and dry conditions. And that can extend well to Florida. Here's where I expect the worst of the severe weather to occur this winter, as you will especially see in January, February of the Arctic um, jet stream being there, you'll have lots of storms that track through here and bring severe weather in these areas, although it can extend up to Kentucky at times. Here in this zone, this is where again you'll see transition between warm and cold phases, and again it's possible that a storm or two, maybe even three, bring in some wintry mix into these regions. So you may want to be a bit aware of wintry conditions this winter if you're in those areas. Whoops. Here's where I anticipate the most nor'easter activity to occur, and then here is where you will see transitions between one storm bringing in lots of rain, mainly down here at least, and then another bringing in snow, and then especially into here, you could see some really cold temperatures. Now, in these pinkish regions, you can see here, that's where I anticipate a lot of lake effect snowfall to occur, especially with these Arctic shocks coming in. It's going to be an active year to say the least in terms of lake effect snowfall. Now here in the purples, this is where I anticipate again Arctic shots to move through in a bunch of snowstorms. But then towards March, however, you'll see a warming phase really begin to occur. Now in the pink here, final zone, this is where I pretty much expect the worst of the winter to be. The coldest temperatures, the most intense snowstorms, overall at least. So this is where I anticipate that you will be shoveling a lot and you will be staying indoors a lot when you're not shoveling. So that concludes my first edition. Again, I have a second edition coming out on the 3rd of September or the 4th, somewhere around there. And then I'll have my final winter outlook come out during early November. So